Okay, so why did we start SICSS? Why did we start the Summer Institute? The first reason, there's a few reasons. The first good reason is that there are a lot of challenges. There are challenges in the world. There are big problems in the world. Matt alluded to some of these, things like poverty and spread of disease. And a lot of our conversation is around how we can use new well streams of data to tackle those problems. But I think we also have a new genre of problem too, right? Exemplified by the case of Cambridge Analytica, right? There are new problems related to the information ecosystem, related to the change, related to the digital revolution, if you will, and who but us to tackle them, right? These are problems that are uniquely, that uniquely require a combination of social science expertise, people who can answer questions about how, for example, information spreads across social networks, and then also people who can build the infrastructure, who can create the multi-party encryption necessary to transfer data, and everything in between. And so as Matt said, this is really a moment where we need to come together to tackle these big problems in the world. But a big problem for us at present is that the field of computational social science is disconnected. Matt just talked about many of the kind of language or jargon-based differences, even philosophical differences between computer scientists and social scientists. But if we plot our citations of each other, you know, who's working with whose work, our citations look a lot like this really sparse graph, right? We have little clusters of people involved in one conversation, another cluster of people over here involved in a different conversation, and there's very little bridging going on. There's very few people who can do the translational work to make this a more dense network, to make our conversations more mutually informed. And tragically, right, we're all trying to tackle the same questions, and without these kind of pipelines, we're going to struggle to do so. And so much of the Summer Institute is designed to enable you all here in this room and everyone following along on the live stream to break these disciplinary boundaries, to reach out to each other, and above all, to create a common space where we can put knowledge into action, a common resource, and really, above all, a community to push computational social science into the mainstream. The third challenge we face in doing this is that training opportunities are rare. Training opportunities in spelling are also rare, as you can see here above. Right, we have a big problem, right? The Venn diagram of people who are both, say, full stack computer programmers and who also know how to read classical social theory, or let's not say classical social theory, contemporary social theory, right, is very, very small. It's a very, very small group of people. And so on the one hand, we need a place where people who can't learn to code can learn how to code, right? And there's all sorts of things one needs to learn, right? Training is not, there's wonderful resources online to help you get up to speed with code. But I think many of us here, or at least I can say for myself, have had the experience where you're trying to work through an online tutorial, maybe early on into the field, and you realize that you just didn't have something installed in your computer. You didn't understand what a namespace was, what a description file was. You know, all these kind of hidden domain knowledge are things that we think are best solved by putting people together in the same room and learning together and allowing people to, again, teach each other how to navigate both the methods, field experiments, mass collaboration, automated text analysis, collecting digital trace data, but also the social theory, right? How do we avoid the kind of atheoretical social science that Matt was just talking about? And that's where we need just as many social scientists coming to the computer scientists, as Matt mentioned. Okay, so what are the solutions? There's some good news. There's a lot of interest in helping make this happen. So today we are very fortunate to thank the Russell Sage Foundation and the Sloan Foundation for funding of this event. They've been extraordinarily generous with us, and many of you are here today because of their generosity. But it's worth mentioning that many other foundations, like the Hewlett Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and other federal science foundations, such as the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, the European Science Foundation, are all funding initiatives around data science and social science to some degree. And so we have help, and that's great. And that really is the engine that drives our Summer Institute. And so now I want to walk you through some of our goals and then tell you how I think we need to get there. So our first goal, I kind of already alluded to, we want to provide state-of-the-art training. And we want people to be able to tackle code. Again, we also want people to be able to learn social theory. Our second goal, as I alluded to earlier, is we want to break down these disciplinary divides. We want to change this graph, right? And we don't want to do that just for convenience, just because it's easier if we work together. We also want to do it because we believe it produces better science. So this is an interesting study by Uzi et al. That was in Science several years ago, looking at novelty in the creation of ideas by looking at patterns and citations. And what they find in this paper, the x-axis is the kind of impact of the, the y-axis is the impact or hit probability of the paper, and the green panel is solo author, the blue panel is a pair of authors, and the red panel is a team of authors. And this takes into account all sorts of confounding factors. And the finding, which is quite convincing from the paper, is that science is not only easier to do together, but better together. It has higher impact, it has more citations, and so on and so forth. So our third goal here today is to reach a really broad audience. We brought all of you here at Duke together from all over the world, but we have more than 300 people who are following along with this on the live stream from Helsinki to Seattle to Cape Town. We're serving and streaming this lecture really across the world. And the idea here is to break down the barriers to access to give everyone who wants it, even the people who aren't at these institutes pictured here, but maybe are following along on the live stream, to give everyone access. And so take a moment, if you will, to go to our main site, the Summer Institute and Computational Social Science, and we have there linked our other sites. So here you can see University of Cape Town, for example, and if you come here, you can scroll down and see the dozens of people that are participating there. Everyone in our partner institutes encourage you to use our Slack channels. Slack, for those of you who don't know, is a chat service, a kind of an enhanced chat service that's linking everyone across all of our sites. And in that space, you can ask Matt or I questions, or any of the visiting speakers questions. And you can also, maybe even more importantly, meet each other and talk to each other. So for example, if a speaker is describing a new paper, you could Slack that, meaning you can drop the PDF into the chat and everyone could have access to it. Or if you have an alternative method that fixes a problem that one of the speakers is describing, put it in the Slack, it'll reach hundreds of people, and we can be more efficient in that way, we believe. We are also fully open source here. So everything's live streamed, but perhaps most importantly, all of our material is publicly available on our website. So if you go to the Summer Institute website, I'm just going to Google it here. My link isn't working. And I just want to show you all how to access all of the materials from the site. If you come to Schedule and Materials up at the top here, you'll be taken to our schedule. We're right here today. So if you wanted to see Matt's slides, you could click here, and you'd be redirected to our GitHub page. And here you can find not only the content of the slides, but a lot of the source code used to make the slides, which is great. And then when we get into tomorrow, when I'll be talking about digital trace data, there are markdown files with code chunks that will allow you to not only see all the code that we'll be talking about on the main screen, but it's also annotated to try to relieve you of taking notes and to focus on learning how to learn. And I think that's a really critical skill to emphasize here. One of the reasons why we want everything open source is so that people can come back and relearn. That's one of the first reasons. The second reason, though, is that we want you all to use this, and you all following along on the live stream. We want you to, if you like, take this curriculum and make your own course. Take it to your university. Start your own workshop. Or next year, maybe lead one of our partner sites. And so our goal, one of our principal goals, is to put ourselves out of business as quickly as possible. Okay. So we want to teach the teachers. And I just want to give a shout out to those alumni from last year who are leading institutes: Maria Rodriguez at CUNY School of Social Work, Kat Albrecht and Josh Becker, who are leading the institute that's at Northwestern. And I should say, all of these institutes are now also contributing material for the benefit of all of us. So yesterday, Raed Ghani spoke around 2:30, and that was live streamed. And all these lectures are available on the live stream link of our main page. And they will also be archived. So if you missed that talk, you want to hear about data science for social good, you can go click on that later tonight. Allie Morgan from Boulder, our Chicago site, is going to be running a little later. So if you don't hear from them, that's because they're on delay. Their institute is running at the end of July. Adana Usmani, who's at NYU, Matti Nelmarkia from Finland, Visiho Ajadamu from Cape Town, and Connor Gilroy from Seattle. And I should say, each of these people is also working with local partners, many faculty members from various universities who have also played a critical role in making all of this happen. So again, we want to put ourselves out of business. We want to teach you how to teach. And so keep in mind that you can learn a lot of different things here. We want to teach you how to code. We want to teach you how to do social theory. We also want to teach you how to teach this stuff. Okay. So how do we do this? Our schedule is a little unique compared to other summer institutes. First, it's pretty long. We have 2 long weeks. The first week, every morning is just like this. Morning if you're in our time zone. Some of our South African colleagues are going to be following along at night. And then each afternoon, we have a group exercise. And these lectures are going to cover a range of topics. Today, we're talking about ethics after our first break. Tomorrow, we're talking about digital trace data. I'll show you the rest of the topics in just a moment. And each afternoon, we have community building exercises, group exercises, that serve 2 functions. One is to teach you. We've found in past experience that learning by doing, active learning, is the best way to learn how to code. We're going to put you in groups that span disciplines in order to facilitate that kind of interdisciplinary exchange. And we're also trying to build community through these group exercises. We're trying to get you started thinking about possible collaborations or various areas of synergy, again, across disciplines and across career ranks too, right? We've got everyone from graduate students to junior faculty here, and you can all learn quite a bit from each other. Finally, each evening, we have a wonderful guest speaker. Tonight, we're very lucky to have Duncan Watts. And there are visiting speakers most nights, though not every night. And the second week is a really unique time compared to other summer institutes. We start off the second week with something called we like to call speed dating. So we have everyone fill out a form that describes their research interests. Then we cluster you into maximally dissimilar and maximally similar groups and ask you to brainstorm research ideas every 20 minutes for about an hour. Then we throw all these ideas up on a Google Sheet, and you are all opt on to a project that you are most excited about. And I want to note that these projects can be pure research. They can be, an empirical question, or they can be infrastructure building or other community building exercises. Really, we want to give you the opportunity to define what the group research projects are, and we do presentations during the last afternoon of the second week. And so as I mentioned, these lectures are going to cover a range of issues. We're talking about ethics today, collecting digital trace data tomorrow. That's going to be screen scraping, working with application programming interfaces, automating a browser, and building apps and bots for social science research. And then on Wednesday, I'll be talking about automated text analysis. We'll discuss both the basics of text analysis and natural language processing, topic modeling, dictionary-based approaches, and some new stuff on text networks. Matt will be talking on Thursday about surveys in the digital age, picking up on some of the stuff he was just talking about earlier today. He's got a great group exercise planned for you all where we're going to actually pull some data with Amazon Mechanical Turk and practice things like post-estimation weighting. And Friday, Matt will be talking about mass collaboration, and Saturday, Matt will be talking about field experiments. Okay. So again, in order to access the materials, you're going to want to go to our site. My slides here are all clickable. Many of Matt's are as well. Here you'll also find the live stream and biographies of people at most, though not all, of the sites in order to facilitate you connecting to each other and perhaps identifying people with common research interests. Okay, I just want to briefly tell you a little bit about our visiting speakers. We really like to get top people, so we have people here who have, I think it's really fair to say, have helped found the field. People like, tonight we'll hear from Duncan Watts. Tomorrow we'll hear from David Lazar. You may recognize his name from the Lazar et al. Paper in Science from 2009. That was really a foundational paper. Duncan, of course, has done foundational work on a range of issues, especially social network analysis. And at the senior level, we've also got Sendhil Mullainathan, who you'll know for his work on machine learning and algorithmic prejudice. And then we have some mid and junior career people like Dean Freewan, who's doing just brilliant work in communications and computational social science, really at the forefront of a lot of interesting new work on social movements and race. We'll hear from Christian Lum, who's a data scientist at the Human Rights Data Analysis Group, who's really going to give us a different window onto how computational social science is evolving outside of academia. And we also have some extra academia diversity in the person of Monica Lee, who's a wonderful data scientist from Facebook who will be joining us next week. And she's going to share with us some of her work as part of the civic engagement team. She's been specifically working on facilitating direct democracy between constituents and elected officials, and also doing work on the spread of misinformation. So we've just got a great lineup of speakers, and we encourage you all to ask them questions over the Slack if you're not here with us in person. The Slack channel for asking questions to visiting speakers has just been put up this morning. Okay, and again, for the group projects, we want to encourage you to think big. At the different institutes, there are different resources to support your research. We've done our best to raise money for you to think big, and to have, as junior scholars, to have an uncommon opportunity to get funding to think big with. And so I just wanted to show you a few of the examples from last year. We had people building tools, so we had people build ngram to vec. So for those of you who know automated text analysis, especially word to vec, they built a different version that uses sequences of words instead of individual words to tease out some interesting new patterns. We had people using structural topic models to study Islamophobia and looking at how it's linked with survey data in various interesting ways. We had people doing field experiments with Zillow and housing discrimination. It was really all over the map, and that's exactly how we wanted it, and that's exactly what we hope we'll see from you all in the second week. And remember also, the group exercises that we're doing each afternoon, these are opportunities to build incrementally towards something. So if you'll see some of our group exercises are more open than others in their structure. And that's intentional. It's designed to help you get the gears turning, start to think about possible topics of collaboration, and again, start to get to know each other. If you are following along on the web and you are not affiliated with a partner institute, this spreadsheet linked here will allow you to connect with other people who may be following along online and weren't able to attend a summer institute in person. Okay, so before we get on to ethics, which is going to start in about 7 minutes, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what we'd like you to do, your responsibilities. And Matt hinted at a lot of this in his introduction. We need to be open. We need to give ourselves time to absorb and to be exposed to new ideas. We're all taught to defend our disciplinary boundaries. Many of you are here because you don't like that about academia. And so we need to challenge those norms. We need to be open to new ideas. We need to, as I think Matt nicely put it, not assume any kind of hierarchy between, say, people who can code and people who know theory. We need to be patient. It's our experience that most everyone who comes to the Institute knows one thing pretty well. So maybe you know text analysis really well, but maybe you've never done field experiments or you've never worked with surveys, right? And so everyone has something to learn here. And so that means that when you're learning that thing for the first time, right, be patient with yourself. I like to say that in this field, success is about 5% creativity, 95% endurance, meaning that learning this stuff often just means indefatigable drive to work around bugs in your code or to push forward when there's not an easy solution. And not assuming that you are bad at the skill, but rather that maybe the open source community could have done a better job in introducing the tool you might be trying to use and learning how to navigate it. And likewise, if you are someone who knows a topic very well, and you are feeling like you want to just kind of go to sleep and skip to the next lecture, remember that we are also teaching you how to teach. And if you already know a subject, take a moment to learn about teaching and how we're teaching it. And again, all the resources on the GitHub page are available to you both during and after the Institute. Togetherness, we've tried to incentivize this by providing some funds for research, but also, when you have a problem, when you're struggling through an issue with coding, reach out to someone. Each site has its own TAs. They're there to help you, but also reach out to each other. Again, that's another nice opportunity to build community and to learn how to teach. Generosity. So many of you are here because you are community builders. You're interested in developing infrastructure, and that's great. One thing that's really unique about this field is that we survive because we're open source. We survive because we're generous to each other. We survive because we're willing to, say, write an R package when there may be little career incentive to do so if you're a social scientist, right? Or as a computer scientist, if you're used to trying to publish in a conference proceedings and writing a paper in 1 to 2 weeks, well, it turns out social scientists are on a different scale. And so we have to find some compromise, and that means being generous with our time and our effort. And as I mention all these things, I often hear young scholars say, well, my discipline just isn't open to this yet, right? It turns out you are your discipline, or you will soon be in a matter of years. And it really is the case that everyone here, especially through this event, and especially through this community that we're building, we can change the norms. We're gonna talk to leading scholars in the field. You can tell them if you have concerns about, for example, whether or not you get credit for building infrastructure and so on and so forth. So let's all be generous. And finally, please give us feedback. This is a link to a Google form where you can give us feedback each day. Many of the local sites will have their own feedback form and opportunity to discuss things like logistical issues. This is really more about the content of the lectures, say issues you think weren't clear, or, for example, with an eye to future years, suggested topics or suggested speakers, and so on. So with that, we'll take our first break. When we come back, Matt will be talking about ethics, and I'll look forward to seeing you all there.